This is Untrapped Butterfly bringing you your lunchbox love. I want to start by apologizing if I do not stare directly at the camera or look off because I am more of a writer than I am a video maker. But I know in order to reach my true audience that this is very important. Everybody's story is important, no matter how messy it is, because you never know when you're going to help somebody else. I want to give a huge trigger warning before I start this video because this could be a huge trigger. Okay, so we're just going to do like Infinite Water says, and we're going to breathe in that good prana, and let me go ahead and give you my testimony. When I was 5 years old, I witnessed my mother being brutally raped. I'm the only one who actually saw the man's face. So this, of course, was devastating to me, and I remember wiping the blood off of my mother's legs and thinking this is the end of all things, the end of my life. At that time, my mother did go on to do Victims Against Violent Crimes, a steel organization in Fort Worth, Texas, but she also, a few years later, was diagnosed with terminal cancer and died by the time I was 9 years old. My grandmother, a very old school woman who I have forgiven, but nonetheless she spared the rod on an unspoiled child. I was already empathic and already an extreme people pleaser by the time I was 9, so the next 3 years of my life were absolutely brutal and cruel until the state of Texas stepped in and took custody of me. During the year that I was in a many group homes, very cruel and unusual things happened to me, along with the denial of an education. I finally was able to run away one night and just get out of there, but I was sleeping at a church down in the Rio Grande Valley when 3 men approached me and dragged me into a van where I was then sold in Mexico. I think that you can get the point of what I was sold in Mexico to do. Needless to say, the next 3 years of my life was even more cruel than the first few years of my life. The next part is what makes Butterfly butterfly. This is my testimony, and I give all the glory to my higher power. I want to initially say that I have absolutely no judgment and have friends of all religions, all backgrounds, and all colors. This is merely just my testimony. I do not want it to turn you away from me, but I pray that it does turn you towards the Savior. One fruitful day, I finally grew from my little 5'2", 80-pound stature into a 5'7", 100-pound stature. At this time, the housing that I was grouped in, I could no longer be considered a child and was going to be moved to a different area of this facility where they kept all of us girls for mostly American men to come down and do what they would with. Because of my height, I was no longer considered a good child, whatever. So, when upon being moved over to the other house, I took a chance and I ran. And I ran, and I ran, and I did not stop running for what felt like hours, and it very possibly could have been. Because all of a sudden, I heard a deep voice inside of me say, "Lay down." So I laid there. I literally urinated on myself laying in that position because I refused to move until something, whatever, told me to move again. I remember telling my higher power, if you are real, my mother's God, then you will save me from this. Well, almost 2 days passed and I was still laying there, urinating what left I had of me. My tongue was sticking to the top of my mouth and my eyelids were literally sticking to my eyeballs. I was so dehydrated. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I heard a voice that said, get up right now and run." And upon standing up, I now know, all these years later, it was the monarch migration. So thousands and thousands and thousands of butterflies must have been startled by my jump, and they started flying in this one direction. So I ran. I ran after them. Well, they all went down a hill that led to this road where a truck driver was fixing his tire. Upon all the butterflies landing all over the man and the truck and me, the man said, "Young lady, what are you doing out here in the middle of Mexico?" And I said, "Sir, I prefer not to talk about it, but can you give me a ride to Fort Worth?" He said, "Well, young girl," he said, "I am heading back into the States. I'll take you as far as I'm going." I then proceeded to get in that truck, and by the grace of God, 20 years ago, the immigration checkpoints and stuff just assumed that I was his daughter and let us pass right on through. And that is all that I am going to tell you of this story right now, but I promise you that it just gets more interesting. This is Untrapped Butterfly, bringing you your lunchbox love. Always remember, every bunny is some bunny. What hurts you today could be absolutely what saves you tomorrow.